Some claims that the death penalty for apostasy in Islam is barbaric and against the freedom for an individual to adopt a faith. To refute this false allegation, I will use an article written by Dr. Ahmad Shafat. I am not going to read the whole article, but I urge you to read it. The article says, if we turn to the Quran and authentic hadiths, the situation becomes crystal clear. There is no legal punishment for apostasy in Islam, whether death or any other. The Quran and authentic hadiths teach us to treat apostates like other kuffar, whose treatment varies from kindness to killing depending on the circumstances and on the degree of hostility they show towards Islam and Muslims. I will inshallah present evidence for this view in two parts. In this first part, I will inshallah show that the death penalty or any other legal punishment for apostasy is contrary to the Quran. And in the second part, one examine the hadiths about apostasy and show with God's permission that those hadiths that prescribe the death penalty do not come from the mouth of our and God's beloved Prophet. May God bless and honor him evermore. What apostasy is? A person commits apostasy, irtidad, or becomes an apostate, murtad, if he describes himself a Muslim and then at a later time takes one of the following actions in a public way. 1. Converts to another religion, which means becomes a Christian or Buddhist or Baha'i, etc. 2. Rejects a part of the Quran after recognizing it to be a part of the Quran. 3. In some cases, when the whole ummah agrees that a certain interpretation of some Quranic verses or hadiths is unacceptable, then the person who holds such an interpretation may become an apostate by decision of the ummah. It is a significant fact that the Book of God does not prescribe any punishment for apostasy. Many Muslims would immediately say, the Quran does not tell us everything. We need to go to the hadith to find guidance on matters not touched by the Quran. But while this is true of matters of detail, this is not true of fundamental issues. God knew that while the Quran would be preserved faithfully, the authenticity of hadiths will remain subject to doubts in most cases. Therefore, he would make sure that all the basic teachings would be included in the Quran while leaving some details to hadith so that the size of the Quranic text remains manageable for memorization. Looked in this way, the absence in the Quran of any punishment for apostasy becomes very significant. The punishment for apostasy is not a detail that we can expect God to leave for hadiths, especially if that punishment is death, since taking the life of a person, if done without a just cause, as regarded by the Quran is tantamount to killing all human beings. Verse 532. It is also significant that the Quran refers to apostasy several times. Verse 2:217, verse 3:8690, verse 4:137, verse 9:66, and yet does not prescribe any punishment for it. In case of spreading mischief in the land, the Quran says in the Holy Quraan verse 533, the recompense for those who wage war against God and His Messenger, and strive with might and main for mischief through the land is execution, or crucifixion, or the cutting off of hands and feet from opposite sides, or exile from the land. That is their disgrace in this world, and for them in the hereafter is a severe punishment. There is no prescribed mandatory death penalty here. Even when the person wages war against God and His Messenger along with striving in the land for mischief, death is considered only one of several options, starting from exile. If such is the case with persons who wage war against God and His Messenger and actively seek to spread mischief in the land, then the question of death is a prescribed penalty for an apostate who continues to lead a peaceful life after his sin of apostasy can hardly arise within a Quranic perspective. Let's read verse 4:90-91. You will find others that wish to gain your confidence as well as that of their people. Every time they are sent back to temptation they give in to it. If they do not withdraw from you nor give you guarantees of peace, nor restrain their hands, seize them and kill them, wherever you find them. In their case we have provided you with a clear warrant against them. These verses clarify the command seize them and kill them. The apostates who rejected Islam by failing to emigrate as commanded by God are divided into three categories. 1. Those who ally themselves with a group with whom Muslims have a peace treaty. 2. Those who want to keep neutrality, committing themselves to peace with both the Muslims and their own people who had not accepted Islam. 3. Those who provide no real guarantee of peace to Muslims and by all indications ally themselves with non-believers engaged in hostilities towards Islam. The first two types of apostates are to be left in peace, while the third one is to be treated like any non-believers in a state of war. They are to be seized and killed wherever they are found. Notice that the Quran uses the words "God has opened no way for you" against them, in connection with the apostates of the first two types. This means that the Quran actually prohibits killing those apostates who want to live in peaceful terms with the Muslims. Islam has no need for keeping people under its fold at pain of death. Such measures befit those systems that are essentially built on falsehood, because that is the only way their followers can hope to slow down their inevitable march to defeat and disappearance. For a religion of truth, it is more advantageous if people are free to examine ideas and then choose the religion or ideology or system they want. This is why the Quran establishes the following famous principle in verse 2:256. God says, "There is no compulsion in religion. Right has become distinct from wrong. So whoever rejects evil and puts faith in God has grasped the most trustworthy handhold that never breaks. And God is hearing, knowing." This verse is usually understood to mean that people cannot be compelled to become Muslims, but they can be compelled to stay Muslims. But the words, "no compulsion in religion," are very general. They should apply equally to entering or leaving any religion, including Islam. One may try to argue against this general understanding of the verse as follows. A person cannot be compelled to enter Islam, but a person who is a Muslim is subject to the laws of Islam, and those laws require death for leaving Islam. This argument would have had force only if we are able to establish that the Quran prescribes the death penalty for apostasy like it prescribes penalties for theft, fornication, etc. But in the absence of any such prescription, we must take the words "no compulsion in religion" in their general sense and understand them to be applicable for both entering and leaving Islam. God says in the Holy Quraan, verse 2:191-193, "And slay them wherever ye find them, and drive them out of the places whence they drove you out, for persecution is worse than slaughter. And fight not with them at the inviolable place of worship until they first attack you there, but if they attack you there, then slay them. Such is the reward of disbelievers. But if they desist, then lo, Allah is forgiving, merciful. And fight them until persecution is no more, and religion is for Allah. But if they desist, then let there be no hostility except against wrongdoers. The forbidden month for the forbidden month, and forbidden things in retaliation. And one who attacketh you, attack him in like manner as he attacked you. Observe your duty to Allah, and know that Allah is with those who ward off evil." These verses refer to the fighting that the non-believers were waging against the Prophet and his followers. This fighting was part of their fitna or persecution of Muslims, aimed at suppressing the Islamic movement. The verses commanded the Muslims to fight back because fitna is worse than killing in battle, and so they should choose the lesser of the two evils. The fighting should continue till there is no more fitna and the religion is for God. The words "the religion is for God" alone are closely related to "there is no more fitna," and mean that the choice of religion is a matter between a person and God and not to be determined by force. Contrary to what some commentators suggest, the words do not mean, "till everyone accepts Islam," because it is definitely known that the Prophet made peace with many tribes even though they had not accepted Islam, and because the Quran explicitly states that when the non-believing opponents incline to peace, the Prophet should do the same. Verse 8:61. That the death penalty for apostasy conflicts with the Quranic perspective is also shown by those verses in which it is stated that the messenger came not as a watcher over people but only as one who clearly declares the truth. Verse 5:92, verse 13:40, verse 16:35. The Quran then continues addressing believers, giving some further regulations, and then says again, "On our messenger there is no obligation but conveying the message. And God knows what you reveal and what you conceal." Verse 5:99. In the previous verses the Muslims are not told that if you turn away then death penalty awaits you, but rather they are told that the messenger has done his duty by conveying the message to you, and now it is up to you whether you want to stay faithful to him or whether you want to turn away from him.